and again say good day and welcome to this final presentation for our national cohort of the National Pathways Leadership Academy. I'm joined by my colleague, Veronica Jackson with UA Currents. My name is Robin Freeman. All right, I am going to share my screen, or are y'all already seeing my screen? Did I already do that? No? Okay. So I'll go through our agenda real quickly and then turn it over to our presenters for today's group projects presentation. Again, welcome to everyone to the Pathways National Leadership Academy, our graduation and our presentations. So at the top of our agenda is, of course, the overview of our national pathways. For those who are new to this cohort, who are guests, we're going to give a brief summary of what our journey since October 2023. Then we'll turn it over to our group one, and they'll share their project's presentation on retention, followed by group two, which will share their project presentation on outreach. We'll take a brief break at 11:55 Central Time and come back with the next two projects presentations from groups 3 and 4 on empowering staff and morale and motivation. And then after our second break, we'll have our presentation from group 5 on recruitment. We'll follow that up with remarks and our presentation of the graduation, and we'll adjourn. Any comments or questions on our agenda today? All right, so as you begin to do your projects presentations, don't forget in each of your groups, if you have any special guests here, to please introduce them while you're doing your presentation today. And to be sure and thank them for the opportunity to participate in the National Pathways. It's certainly been an honor and a privilege to have you in this cohort. Our Pathways Leadership Academy is designed for frontline staff who are interested in developing and pursuing leadership in their organizations. This is a foundational program in which participants begin to understand the intricacies of vocational rehabilitation leadership, and we go through the training that's needed to excel in this field of vocational rehab. So this training certainly supports National VR's goal of having a talent pool of people within the agency and within the national network to promote a learning culture and to develop a network of future leaders. And for your participation and successful completion of the National Pathways, you'll get a certificate of completion as well as a certification from from UA Currents as a National Pathways leader. Among the things, if you recall, for participating in this National Pathways cohort has been numerous homework assignments which have all been designed to help you develop your reflection, develop your skills, and to apply the principles that you've learned along the way from our different presenters in relationship to leadership. You've also been in these cohorts or accountability partners where you've been able to coach one another, support one another, develop that network of colleagues who are in similar situations and organizations doing great things. So it's also expanded our networks. Each class has been meeting monthly for 4 hours, 11 a.m. Central Time to 3 p.m. And of course, with the homework assignments, we've asked you to compile it into a portfolio to present to your leaders at your agency so they can see the demonstration of the work that you've completed and also to document your leadership journey. And then, of course, today highlights the group project work that you've completed with your cohorts in this training session. Our topics have been wide and varied. They include in our first session where we learned about our behavior leadership style with the true colors. We also engaged in some team building where we got to learn about one another virtually. And then we talked about the basic elements of motivation and engagement in the workplace. We've also explored what it means to have personal values and how those personal values impact your work and why it's so important to identify your values because it really does impact how we show up on a day-to-day basis and how we make decisions. Along with those personal values, we ask you to identify your personal mission statement as well as your personal vision statement, which goes along with developing your personal leadership development goals. In the third session, we had a presentation on VR leadership, and you also engaged in an activity where you interviewed a potential mentor. You also did the 360-degree feedback assessment where we asked you to get reflections from your colleagues as well as from your immediate supervisor about your role in the workplace as it relates to communication, strategic leadership, strategic development, and planning in other areas. We also talked about leadership development and time management. We went through that personal time management plan. We talked about the language of personal accountability, the personal accountability model, and delegation. And we talked about conflict resolution and customer service and how to address conflict in the workplace. And then our final session, which was last month, we heard from VR leaders as it relates to being change agent, change accomplished in your organizations. We've had some great presenters since our time together, including Veronica Jackson from UA Currents, Deputy Commissioner Dale Batten from Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, David Leon and Sharina Sewell, also from Virginia DARS, Dr. Antoinette Williams from CSADR, Kimberly Claiborne from Arkansas Rehabilitation Services, Stacey Bragg, who is the Deputy Director at Delaware VR, and Robert Dole III, who is the Director at the Florida Commission for the Blind. All right, so at this time, we are going to hear from our first group, which includes Stephanie Mull from North Carolina, Michelle Sprague from Maine. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. Courtney, I'm just going to go with first names. Courtney from Maine, Kristen from Tennessee, and Gretchen from Minnesota. I'll stop my share so that you can share your screen.
Okay, I just want to confirm that I am sharing
the
screen, and you can all see that in the presentation mode, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And let me just rearrange my screen here so I can see you all. All right, I guess we will get started. I'm looking at some of my group mates. I can't see everyone's video screen sharing, but I guess I'll start us off since I'm already going here. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Gretchen Aikema. I'm from Minnesota Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and my role within the agency, I'm a staff development specialist. So meaning I train our internal staff, our new employees, doing a lot of onboarding work, training folks for the first time, but also then just offering training curriculum to staff who have been around for a while, do a lot of policy work, policy training, and that type of thing. I was a counselor, a rehab counselor for almost 9 years, serving both transition youth and adults before transitioning to this role back in about 2016. I'll hand off to Courtney.
Hello, everyone. My name's Courtney Tabar, and I am from Maine. I am a vocational rehab counselor, and I work with the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired, serving adults and youth with vision loss. Krista?
Hi, my name is Kristen Vachon. I'm from the state of Tennessee. I'm a training coordinator and I work with all the various divisions for vocational rehabilitation in our state. And Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Stephanie Mullen. I'm from North Carolina, which we are the Division of Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities. I actually work as a vocational evaluator, also wearing the hat of a counselor in charge of approving casework for our rehab counselors. And so happy to have this opportunity to participate in this training and awesome group mates.
And Michelle was a part of our group, but she's been gone a few months now. So unfortunately, we miss her, but she was not a part of this presentation today. And I guess before we dive in, so our topic today is retention. One of the CSAVR priorities was about employee retention. And so just kind of up front, we wanted to acknowledge that this is an extremely complex topic, and we know that we are not going to be solving this issue today in this presentation. We wanted to address some concepts that we did learn throughout our National Pathways training. Some concepts that we believe we could think about that could be rolled out agency-wide, but also then bringing it back to what we can do as individuals within VR agencies and leading from our seats. We wanted to approach it from that lens and highlight also things that we know are already in place and leveraging resources that we know are already within our agencies. So we are going to start off, I believe, with Kristen talking about what we can do in terms of the whole package.
Hello again. One of the things that is not just a VR struggle, but is a struggle across the board. If you look up retention strategies and issues with retention, pay is number one on every single chart, on every single website, everywhere you go around the world. We don't necessarily have control over that, but one of the things that we feel would be beneficial is how we approach discussions of the package that you're getting when you are employed by VR. It is not simply just what's going into your check every 2 weeks. So part and parcel of that is the way it's approached, the way it's outlined. I know personally we use Edison for the state of Tennessee for our time management, that sort of thing, and it will give you a total rewards breakdown, a pie chart, which looks very nice, and I have no idea how it works, but then it also gives you numbers that you can read. That tells you how much they give for, say, your health insurance, that sort of thing. Having that available for people who are interested in possibly working for the state, especially people that are coming straight out of college that maybe have never had health insurance, especially if they've always been on their parents and they're stepping out into the adult world the first time. 401k is an employer match. That is a very adult topic. And I know I did not understand that when I first stepped out, did not understand the benefit of compound interest and how those things work. I think those could be presented in a way that is professional, but also give more of an idea of what VR, what the state can offer. And the state in general for us, and I know for many others, has a really competitive match rate with 401ks. They have really good health insurance benefits. The vacation time is extremely generous. We get not just our personal time, but we also get sick time put in. That is fairly unique in most of the jobs I've had previously. You got one or the other. You did not get both, and you did not get the rate that we currently get now. A lot of states have hiring incentives, referral bonuses, those sorts of things that just add to that benefit package. Employee assistance programs are really important to a lot of people, and especially with more awareness on mental health and work-life balance, how we feel at work, how we feel interacting with others, and how our home life does affect our work life. Those programs are rare outside of a state federal job, you can find them, but they are generally not robust, and the ones within government entities tend to be fairly robust. One of the things that was a huge draw for me, and I think would probably be a draw for more people if they were aware of it, is the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program. Anybody with a government job in any sector at any position is generally eligible for that. There are stipulations. I am not a financial expert. Do not listen to me about anything, but it's worth looking into. For me, that was a massive draw. I have a large amount of student loan debt, and this is literally life-changing for me. That is a huge benefit for me, and I've talked to plenty of staff that did not know that was a thing, and it is quite literally going to change my life simply because I'm willing to work here. And that to me is worth a maybe a smaller paycheck than I could get elsewhere, but far and above worth it. And I know from personal experience that a lot of staff have no idea that exists. I think those sorts of topics, if they're brought up in the initial conversation, can sweeten the deal. Having achievement awards, making staff feel wanted and included, making sure that they know that we want them here and we're excited that they're here. That matters to most people. I think we all want to feel included. And Gretchen, if you'll go to the next slide, please. Just to know that it's not just me jabbering, that this was actually things that other people said too, people who know much more than me. Generally, a large percentage, if you're looking at just financial impacts, 32% does not come strictly from your salary. It's beyond that. So for me, like I said, Edison has this breakdown of salary, and between my salary and then the additional benefits, it has at the very top that my value per year last year was almost $100,000. I do not make $100,000. That is not my paycheck. But the value of what the state of Tennessee offers, in my opinion, is fairly robust. That's not a number to sneeze at for someone with my education level and my experience level. And having a number, a value number, when you're talking to someone about above and beyond what you're going to make, in your paycheck, can really sway people's minds. 74% of employees don't understand their overall package. And while I'm sure a lot of people feel like I do, I'm not a financial expert. I don't want to give financial advice and make people very mad at me. Just telling people things are available can't hurt. Letting people know where to look for resources is not a bad idea. I think it will entice more people to come and hopefully more people to stay. 55% of employees are willing to trade direct compensation for additional benefits. We already offer a lot of additional benefits. They just have to know they're there. So that's my part. On to the next.
Thank you, Kristen. Another piece when we talked about as a group, thinking about retention and what that means and how can we increase retention within our VR agencies. Another topic that seemed to be emerging a lot in our discussions was the idea of workplace culture. And so it might sound a little bit contrary to what Kristen was just talking about, but we think it kind of goes hand in hand. So that money isn't really the only reason that people leave an agency. So it's important to create a culture so that staff don't want to leave. They like where they are. And when we talk about culture, we as a group sort of divided into 3 sections or headings, if you will. The first being professional development and training. People want to know that they have opportunities for growth, whatever that means to them. Maybe that means growing into a formal leadership role or growing within the role they already have and leading from their seat. It keeps people engaged in the work. So things like tuition reimbursement programs or individual development plans are great, or just even simply in-house trainings, in-house development programs are all really great opportunities for staff to grow in a way that they find valuable to them. In addition, we talked about individual managers. So not only having opportunities as an agency to grow and have mechanisms to support that growth, but individual managers supporting staff and the importance of that communication and that their staff, they're communicating that support to their staff and supporting their staff in taking those steps to develop And then for others like myself, I'm not in a leadership or in a manager role. I don't manage anybody. So thinking about what can I do? What can I bring to my workplace culture? How can I have an impact on that? And I think about things like, of course, I'm in staff development and staff training, but continuing to think about the variety of roles we have in our agency. And what do those different opportunities look like? And while I don't get to be a part of every conversation for every staff about what their individual development looks like, I certainly know the work, and I certainly know different areas that people might be interested in. And so just keeping that conversation alive as a team, as a work unit, to provide opportunities to our staff. I think a lot about modeling what I want others to see and know about professional development. That means going through professional development myself, and talking about it and being open about it and modeling that I am in charge of my own career path and carving that out and communicating that with my supervisor, my team, and actively looking for opportunities to do that for myself. And then just in general, the way I talk about learning and development, as a person that sits in a seat where I do have contact with staff or other teams, just talking about it in a way that sounds inviting, it sounds important, and it sounds like there are a variety of opportunities for staff to engage in, I think are just simple ways that I can hopefully bring that lens and improve or strengthen a culture when it comes to professional development and training. The other area of culture, so we talked about kind of 3 pods or 3 areas. The other area that we talked about that will really increase or strengthen an agency culture is this idea of feeling valued and appreciated, celebrating each other. And it sounds so simple, but yet sometimes we forget about that. We kind of just head down, grind through the work, and really taking opportunities to celebrate each other and celebrating our efforts. Not just the successful achievements, which is absolutely important. We want to hear about the successes, the customer who got the job or the project that launched successfully. But we also want to celebrate each other's efforts in that, because there's a lot of work happening out there that we want to hear about and we should be sharing. So things like, as kind of looking at an agency level sort of way to help people feel valued and appreciated. Shout outs, kudos to staff, any sort of formal staff appreciation is so valuable on that level. And offering that appreciation in a variety of ways, because we all accept and want appreciation in different ways. One thing that I've heard that staff do that I've tried to pick up myself, when I think about what can I do as an individual contributor to helping people feel valued and appreciated. Something as simple as implementing Thank You Thursday. So every Thursday, sending an email to somebody that I worked with on a project, had a meeting with, and just recognizing the efforts that they contributed to the XYZ thing that we were working on. Just extending, I appreciate you, I see you, I know that you're putting a lot of work into this, so thank you for that, because it's valuable. And I think things like that, if we can each bring little nuggets of those sorts of things, I think overall, when you've got hundreds of people, thousands of people doing that within your agency, that can really turn around that culture, feeling valued and appreciated. And the third area that we talked about when we talk about culture and strengthening culture is collaboration and trust with each other as an agency. We talked about things like mentorship for new employees, but it doesn't have to, I guess, stick to new employees, but mentorship is so important when you're acclimating to a new workplace and learning your roles and how everything works. One-on-one coaching, answering the questions, staff's questions about, well, how am I doing? Providing that feedback. And really, and more, of course, there's a lot more to say about that, but what it really boiled down to for us was one word, and it was communication. And I think we heard that a lot through our time in this training too, throughout the various presentations that Robin had just outlined before we started, is that communication is really such a powerful and binding factor in probably all the pieces that are going to be presented today. and communication between all levels of the agency, not just top down, but bottom up and back and forth in every which way. Asking for feedback, providing feedback, communicating the why behind changes or updates within the agency. Communication just really helps everyone feel like they're in the know and they know what's happening. And it only strengthens and cultivates the thing that we all share in common and reminds us that we all share something in common. We're all working towards the same mission to help people with disabilities achieve employment. And just like Kristen, to share some stats on culture. These aren't just pulled out of nowhere. I think there's a lot of data, a lot of research to back up some of these trends and things that we sort of pulled out of our experience here in this course. So there's 3 stats that we wanted to share with you. The first one is 46% of job seekers consider company culture very important when applying to a company. And 47% say it's their main reason in looking for work. That's huge. Second one, employees who feel connected to their company's culture are 3.7 times more likely to be engaged in the work. And we think about what our nature of our work is in vocational rehabilitation, how impactful that is just on other humans. When our staff are engaged in the work, our customers benefit from that. And the last one says companies with high employee engagement levels experience a 17% increase in productivity and a 41% reduction in absenteeism. Again, I can't help but think about the whole end user of all this are the customers that we serve. And we are, as individuals and people too, it's important for us to feel valued and have a wonderful working experience. But I can't help but read these stats on culture and just think that us having a wonderful workplace and feeling engaged in our work only improves the outcomes and experience for our customers as well. And with that, I'm going to hand off to Courtney.
Hello, everyone. This is Courtney. So I'm going to speak about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, otherwise known as DEIA. So this is a term that has become something we've discussed a lot more frequently in recent years, but it doesn't mean that it's a new thing. This is something that's been diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility have been important for a really long time. It's just something we haven't quite talked about quite as much or talked about in the ways that we're talking about it now. So I would say building a workplace based on DEIA principles really helps to create a culture of belonging in the workplace. And it really helps to increase engagement in our work, right? So it makes us feel more connected to the people that we're working with and connected to the mission of our agency and to what we're doing. So some things that can go into that, right, is so in terms of diversity, right, building a diverse team. And that's diversity of backgrounds, but it's also diversity of perspectives. And just making sure also, I would say that making sure that your team of people, whether it's front-facing staff or the leadership team, admin staff, that the employees reflect or are representative of the people that we serve in our agency as well, right? Because that can increase engagement in the work. It also is really helpful when engaging with people, with the people we serve, and really building those connections and that customer service, like Gretchen was mentioning just a moment ago. With regards to equity, one of the things I think is really important is having equitable policies and practices. And so, thinking about what can we do as an agency, what can we do as a team to support people from diverse backgrounds and to be more inclusive. And so that can, policies play a role in that, right? So can we have policies that support working single parents, for example, and allow them to go to doctor's appointments if they need to, or working policies that support people with mental health needs and allowing them to take time as needed or to flex scheduling, things like that. And Stephanie's going to speak to those things a little bit as well in terms of flexible scheduling in a moment. But I just kind of want to have us thinking about that from a lens of equity, because it's really about, thinking about the ways that we can make it make our workplace better for people from all different backgrounds and with all different needs. Inclusion, right? So we want to think about how we build inclusive teams. And it's not just about having a diverse team and having diverse perspectives and backgrounds. It's really making sure that the people on the team feel included and feel like they are being heard. It's making sure that we are inviting people to share their perspectives and then really listening to those perspectives, right? It's making sure that all of those, that everyone's given a seat at the table and invited to speak. It's not just the same 2 or 3 people in a meeting sharing all the time. We want to hear from everyone or all different perspectives, and who invite feedback, maybe from people who may tend to be a little bit quieter, may tend to not speak up as much, really letting them know we care what you have to say, and we're gonna listen to that. Accessibility is huge as well, right? And accessibility, I think, is it's one of the ways of being inclusive, right? So and accessibility can be things like we tend to talk about it as related to people with disabilities, but I think accessibility is broader than that, right? It's even making sure that supervisors feel accessible to their employees, right? To their staff, feeling like you can talk to people when that you can approach your supervisor with questions and for support. Accessibility, though, in terms of support for people with disabilities or with varying needs, right? It's making sure that meetings are accessible, for example, right? Can we perhaps be more accessible by having a meeting via Zoom instead of having people drive in to meet in person and travel really far? Or can things be more accessible if we meet in a different location that's easier for people to access? The other thing is, talking about documents, right? Making sure that people can access the documents that they need to read for work, that they need to distribute to clients and to people we serve. And so, and also accessibility is related to people. I mean, just another example, right? People who maybe speak languages other than English, right? Having things be translated into different languages, having things be available in different formats is so important, right? So accessibility is quite a broad thing, but it really speaks to that desire to be inclusive. And when you have all of these pieces and you're working on all of these pieces, that's what helps to create that culture of belonging. And I think it's really important to say that none of us ever have it all together and all perfect all the time, right? We all are learning in this process, and there's even those of us who are working specifically on DEIA initiatives in our day-to-day work are constantly learning new things. And that's the beauty of it, I think. The other thing I would mention is making sure that we are welcoming hard conversations and just giving space for learning, right? Like, as I said, right? So none of us have it all figured out all the time. So we need to be open to challenging feedback sometimes, right? And to sometimes constructive conversations about how we can do better. If we have a meeting and we learn later that we did not do something super accessibly in that meeting, maybe our communication was not very accessible or the documents we shared were not accessible, then how can we change to make things go better, right? Or if someone felt excluded or didn't feel connected to the work because of being excluded, then we need to be willing to hear that feedback and understand that the impact was greater than the intent, and we need to be willing to to shift to shift for the future and to change and to grow. And that's really about creating a culture of lifelong learning and growth. So I think that when teams are able to work on all of these aspects, but really just to be open to change and to growth and to striving to be making people feel a sense of belonging on a day-to-day basis, that can really help to improve retention and make people want to stay. So I'm going to ask Gretchen if you can switch to the next slide. These are some stats around DEIA. So 60% of employees want business leaders to speak up on diversity issues, right? So it's not just about doing the work, it's about really being advocates as well. That advocacy is really key, and we want to see, employees want to see that their agencies are speaking out and doing something about DEIA, and that's important to them and to us as an agency as a whole, not just for, you know, on an individual basis. 76% of job seekers and employees say diversity is important when considering job offers, and 63% prioritize DEIA programs when choosing a company. That's a really big deal, especially in this time when we're really struggling to make hires and to keep people in jobs, right? So that this DEIA initiatives are key, and something we should be talking about when we are doing hiring as well. Diverse teams may be as high as 87% better at making business decisions. And 74% of millennial employees believe their organization is more innovative when it has a culture of belonging. These initiatives, as I said, they're key, and they really make people feel people are paying attention right now. And I think, as I said earlier at the beginning, it's something we're thinking about and talking about now because there's a term for it, but this is not a new need. This is not a new thing. It's wonderful that we're talking about it now and working on it, and that we have pathways for addressing DEIA within different agencies. And this has been something that's been important for a really long time, and that has been important to people as individuals and as employees and job seekers for a long time. So it's great that now we have a way to talk about it and to, you know, research on it and to make movement in that direction. So that is my piece for today. I'm going to pass it on to Stephanie.
All right, and I will be rounding out our group's presentation on work-life balance. For me, I think this all goes back to relationship building and having that communication with staff, being respectful of their needs, and also being courteous. With that, I know our agency and our regional staff definitely encourage us to use our PTO, which is a great incentive for working for state government. You know, sometimes you just need to take a mental health day to, you know, kind of reset yourself to be able to better serve our clients and employers out in the community. Also, use of EAP, employee assistance programs. I think just about every state should have some type of resource that offers those services to staff. Also allowing for you to have more of a work-life balance, having that flexible schedule, being able to telework, which I think a lot of staff are doing. I know I'm back in the office every day, but having that opportunity to telework is very beneficial. That also gives staff time back. They're not having to commute. I know where I work, we have a very rural area. So sometimes you're going to have to drive 30 minutes just to get to the office. So being able to telework saves you that commute, an hour a day. Also saves on business attire. A lot of us who are on camera having those virtual meetings, staffings, you know, from the waist up or even chin up can be beneficial for staff. Let's see. Also, some people are specifically looking for those opportunities to work from home. I know a lot of the clients that we work with want to try to find a work from home or telework opportunity. It could just be their personal preference or also disability related. You know, they may have that social anxiety. They don't want to be around people. So being able to work from home in their own comfortable setting is beneficial for them, and also may allow them to be more productive, you know. I know for me personally, my supervisor is a big advocate for taking care of yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're afforded the opportunity to take care of yourself, you're going to be better able to be productive and take care of the clients that you serve. And Gretchen, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll just kind of follow up some stats for work-life balance. 48% of workers call themselves workaholics. I know for me, I think I am a workaholic. And that's just due to the amount of vacancies that we have in our office across the state. But kind of thinking back on some of their SMART goals that we worked on during this Leadership Academy, I definitely am trying to prioritize myself to be better able to have that work-life balance. 79% of workers believe that flexible working options would allow for a better work-life balance. And I do believe that that is true. When we were working from home totally when COVID hit, it did kind of allow that sense of, oh, I don't have to rush, get to the office. I can kind of take my time, pace myself in my own environment. And then lastly, the US is ranked 53rd out of 60 on a global list of countries for work-life balance. So I think there is room for improvement. I'm glad to work for an agency that does allow that opportunity to take care of yourself, your family, so that you can be a better employee and worker for the clients that we do serve. And that is all that I have for our group.
Thank you, Group 1. Any comments or questions from anyone?
This is Justin. I was just gonna say I was really surprised, but then I guess also not too surprised with some of the stats at the end, specifically the U.S. being 53rd out of 60 countries in terms of work-life balance. That definitely says something. We've got a lot of work to do. So that was very informative presentation.
Agreed, Justin. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
I do want to give a comment. I'm glad to know about this student loan debt. That will help me greatly. I was not aware of that. I thought it was applying to other entities other than the state agency. So I will be looking into that. So thank you for providing me.
Thank you, Gloria. Great presentation, the whole package, culture, DEIA, work-life balance, all of those work together to help us improve retention in vocational rehab. So thank you, Group 1. Next up is Group 2, and that is going to be Katie, Satara, and Michael. So I'll stop share, and if you want to share your screen.
I'll share. Okay, can y'all see my screen? Okay.
Can. Yep, we can.
Okay. So my name is Katie Ong, and I'm with Michael and Satara, and we're covering outreach. I wanted to start my section by noting the dictionary definition of outreach, because we use the term often, but do we note the real intention behind the word to extend beyond current or usual limits, and providing professional services or services of a specific expertise to a group of people who may not otherwise have access. Noting that the intention of an outreach effort is to reach further than our common partners, consider those who are underserved in our communities, and make efforts to wrap them in. So I envision outreach in terms of circles, which I've depicted here with a multi-layered circle in a bullseye fashion. In the center, I note our tightest, most common partners, which are, for example, mental health, community colleges, job centers, or social services. There are several examples. These are our partners, VR partners, with whom we probably already have a strong relationship, or we make regular efforts to engage with them. We're connected on an ongoing basis by our shared dependency on each other and our shared customers. So technically, outreach to these entities might not even be required because the relationships here are natural. We have automatic presence with each other. The middle band just outside the center is where we find those outer community entities where our customers are not the same, our missions might be different, but we can help each other if we're intentional about maintaining a relationship. These are your local businesses, your Chamber of Commerce, HR departments of large employers, town government maybe, as well as disability-specific groups such as the ARC or providers for individuals with autism or recovery treatment centers. We might reach out to these entities on occasion when we need something, client advocacy, services, or to identify employment opportunities. We still work with these groups fairly often, so we have relationships, but our presence is not automatic. We have to be intentional and go out of our way to nurture those. For example, by participating in a Chamber of Commerce event, like the ribbon cutting for a new business. It might not have much to do with your day-to-day work, but the value in attending the event is to nurture your presence in the community. So when you need to find someone a job and you show up at that business, they remember that you came to the opening. Further out in my circle, the last band, I have entities such as housing providers, shelters, food banks, churches. Clubs like the Elks Club or the Lions Club. These are groups that are in your community. They are permanent fixtures, but from a VR perspective, we don't get services from them and they don't offer employment. So we may not engage with these groups, but if you consider carefully, they cover a vast array of individuals. And one of VR's problems is being that hidden secret. The only way to serve the underserved is for the broader public to know that we exist. So tapping these resources as a way to get out VR information is key. And with some of these groups, we can have shared partnerships. For example, in our locality, the food bank hosts clients for community-based assessments. Churches can often be emergency funding sources. And we direct clients to shelters when their primary need is emergency housing. Because these community groups are on the edges of our circle, we may have little presence with them at all. Outreach efforts need to be done by attending a group meeting or presenting about VR services or having someone from the senior center come talk to your office about what they do. And that nurturing that presence, for example, after you have a relationship with one of these entities, they might be willing to host a client intern, will further extend your presence with that in that relationship. And lastly, on the very outskirts of my big circle, I've listed the way outside community entities that are seemingly unrelated to VR, law enforcement, EMS, DMV, medical offices, veterans organizations. Do we have presence with these entities? Do they know who we are, where we are, what we do? Michael and Satara and I looked at Ohio VR as an example of a state that's doing excellent outreach activities from their state website. And they have materials that are geared towards each of these external groups regarding serving or working with people with disabilities, how they can make their workplaces or mission disability inclusive. And my last slide just shows a proposed division of labor within a VR agency, where the agency can have different layers of employees engaging in outreach and to nurture presence within a community or a region or the state. At the top, where leadership sits, the responsibility is the state website, our communication materials, our news and information. In the middle of our agency might be where office managers sit or middle management. They can be responsible for attending meetings related to economic development, Department of Commerce, nurturing large employers, or directing staff to one-on-one meetings with key stakeholders. And of course, rehabilitation counselors or other field staff like job placement or evaluators can leverage their membership in community groups that they might already hold. Maybe use an hour of work time to attend those community meetings. attending events at a chamber of commerce. One of our counties recently held a reentry simulation, which is walking through the early processes of a recently released individual who was incarcerated. And attending that simulation is not directly related to our work, but it is adjacent. And being there, meeting other people in other parts of the community, and we did have common partners, shows our presence. So outreach is a responsibility at all levels, and consistent attendance and presence in a community in a variety of ways will cover the basics, like developing referral sources and employment or training opportunities. But also when VR is a community partner, it furthers the goal of having inclusive discussions, inclusive spaces where people with disabilities are considered. And I'll turn it over to Satara on communication.
One second here while the interpreter gets set up with the microphone.
Sure.
Okay, we are good to go. All right, just checking to see if the interpreter can see me. Hello, everyone. My name is Satara, and I work with the Maine VR. We're for Maine VR, and so I wanted to make sure I believe this is Terry, the interpreter might have gotten that wrong, but my supervisor is present today, and I wanted to present about communication and collaboration in the VR setting. And making sure that we have access to the different resources and so that people know the different services that are available. And so we really are partnered with many different entities, whether that's individuals, businesses, it could be nonprofit organizations, it could be other state organizations, and there's a litany of other things. And each state, of course, has, specifics related to their own VR agencies that do differ a little bit. For example, in Maine, we're under the Department of Labor. And so we believe that maintaining accessibility should really be a standard so that people can, participate in different things and be involved. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. Some states are actively involved with social media. For example, the Maine Department of Labor and Division of Blind and Visual Impairment have websites. Well, rather than having websites, have Facebook pages. Here we'll bring up, here's the Maine Department of Labor's Facebook page. And you can see the different varied pieces of information here on the website. Thank you. Perfect. Let's flip back. Yep. And so some websites, quite honestly, are not user-friendly. It's not easy to navigate through the different pages. It's not easy to find information. What people need to access might not be easy to find. And so many people may have incorrect information based on the ease of use of the website. And that's our concern, is that people will continue to have incorrect information about what we do and the services that we offer. Because many of us, many people often ask us, oh, do we qualify for services? Have a ton of questions that could easily be found online or are found information available, like on a website. So we need to make sure that information or video, like for example, information or videos by people that are representatives of all different types of groups are widely available. All right. Next slide, please. Great. And as Katie mentioned before, we had looked at Ohio's website. And theirs, of course, is Ohioans serving Ohioans with disabilities, opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. And their website was very, very, very clear and user-friendly. I mean, it was so easy to find information. For example, on their website, They had an accessibility filter readily available that you could search through things, for, opportunities, ready to go. Everything was presented there, super easy to find. One example, large print or braille, super easy to find. They had it broken down by group. They had interpreter services, links to that. They had links to how do you find out information about wheelchairs or other kind of mobility device things. And it was for the entire state. So it was really well done. Next slide, please. Great. So if you're looking at the website, again, the Ohio website, and the navigability, the ability to navigate through that website as an individual who just needs to click on something like a tab, right? And so under that tab, you could transfer to, services for students or services for deaf and hard of hearing individuals, services for people who are blind. There were just specific groups already there set up and ready to go with their related services. And so the tools that were available were very, very clear and easy to access. It was very nice. Rather than having to, navigate from one page to the next and back and forth, it was super easy to get to. And what you can see on those pages, you can see more information related to businesses and employers, how their state partners with those businesses and organizations in Ohio. It was very clear and easy to access. It also provided some incentives for employers and hiring people with disabilities, ways to be adaptive and adapt certain things for, an employment environment. It was very, very well done. But I guess the point of all of this would be, and the point behind all of this is that communication and collaboration in that information provides up-to-date information in a really accessible format that people could access fairly often or as often as they want, and they can get what they need as quickly as they need it. And so right now we're thinking like, oh, we're more reactive than proactive. But the accessibility for everyone, is really part of outreach because it could do a lot of the work for us that way. And I think that's most of what I have. So I'll turn it over to Michael.
Hello, I'm Mike Winsberger with Minnesota VR. And with me today is my supervisor, Christine Hendrickson. And so my portion today is talking about rebranding and how to use it as a tool to improve outreach in your state. When rebranding, it is helpful to consider the following items, such as does the proposed new name make it easier for most citizens to readily understand what the program does? Do we have input and feedback from key stakeholders? Can it be an acronym? Does it stand out from other government entities? So, for example, DHS could stand for Department of Homeland Security or Department of Human Services. If you have a logo or a seal, are you updating this as well? Does your mission statement reflect your current values and goals? And is this readily available for all? And finally, is the name and the mission statement in clear, common language that most people, to include high school students, have a reasonable idea of what we do? All too often, we hear that vocational rehabilitation services is the best kept secret, and rebranding could be a tool to help us become a household name. Next slide, please. So here comes some numbers for you. In our research into Ohio, I had completed a informational interview with one of the members out there, and what they did, so they changed their name back in 2013, and part of that was they did a survey back in 2013 before they changed the name, and then again in 2017 after the name change has taken effect for about 4 years. In 2013, Beforehand, it was called Ohio Rehabilitation Services Commission. And then later in 2013, they changed it to Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. One of the first questions that they asked in both surveys was, do you know what this program does based on the name? And in 2013, 12% said yes. And then in 2017, 53% said yes. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go into all of this, but the top choices, if the respondent said, yes, I know what this program does, in 2013, in both years, they were asked, okay, since you know what the program does, can you please explain? 20% said that in 2013, 20% said helps people with disabilities, medical issues. 16% said job training and retraining, and 13% said rehabilitation of inmates or reintegrate inmates. In 2017, 27% responded that Ohioans, the OOD assists in job placement and finding employment. 18% said job employment opportunities, and we had a tie for third place. 10% said helps provide opportunities for people with disabilities, and another 10% said helps people with disabilities. In the next slide, this is where if they responded that they did not know what the program does. And so in 2013, they were asked, based on the name, what do you believe that the program does? 16% of respondents said they did not know. 15% guessed that it was rehabilitation of inmates and reintegration of inmates. And 12% said rehabilitation for people. In 2017, the same question was asked. 28% guessed that it was for job placement and finding employment. 18% responded that it was provides opportunities for people with disabilities, and 17% said just employment opportunities. So we do see a stark change over the years, and Ohio has obviously put in a lot of work to get to that point, and they're still continuing to do so. Next slide, please. One of the biggest ways to get your name out there, if you are considering to rebrand, is that this process takes time, effort, and consistency. It does have a price tag, but we weren't able to really boil it down to a number, because it involves staff time. If you have a logo that you're updating, that'll take time to figure out. Of course, business cards, website domains, signage, and other printed materials. It takes time, where it's encouraged to have input and feedback from key stakeholders, customers, your state rehab council, and as well as buy-in from all those groups. Because very often in vocational rehab, we get our referrals from our key stakeholders, whether that's the county, other agencies, word of mouth, and then let's see, and then for getting your name out there to the public, it doesn't happen overnight. It is evident that Ohio has continued to promote their program after rebranding for years and in implementing this change. The process of becoming a household name takes time, effort, and consistency. This is where it is helpful to have key stakeholders as well as other parties be able to participate in the process. Key stakeholders and other supporters can shed light on the program and often are the referring entities. In summation, rebranding is a tool that can be used to make our programs easier to be recognized and our mission understood. Next slide. Here are our resources. If just a quick note on the bottom one, OOD flyers and fact sheet. Ohio has a wealth of information on their website. I know Satara has already spoken about that a little bit, but they have different flyers and outreach materials to various different groups, such as police, fire, ambulance, schools, other government entities, parents, family members, pretty much covers everybody. And that's all that we have. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike and team. Curious, did you all know about the Ohio VR program before your presentation?
No. So when one of the first times we met, I forget if it was before or after June, the June class, we discussed talking about rebranding because that has come up. North Carolina with Katie, they just rebranded. Minnesota, it's been a topic of conversation, and then Vermont had recently changed their name too. And so knowing that, we wanted to take a look further back and if possible. And so we did some research and we found out that Ohio was one of the first states to rebrand outside of the name vocational rehab. And so we were able to reach out and connect with them through my leadership, and then they provided a wealth of information.
Great information. Love hearing about it, and look forward to exploring the website and getting more information about what they've done. And great to see the data, how public perception of their programs have shifted since that name change. Thank you for sharing. Good information about outreach. Any other questions or comments? Great job, Group 2. We appreciate your presentation. Thank you all. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back at 12:20. I think I'm going to go up a little 5 minutes instead of 12:15 for Group 3. So we'll be back at 12:20 Central Time. All right, we are back and ready for our next group project presentation. We are up to Group 3, which includes Nicole from Delaware, Carrie from Maine, Damian from DC, Carol from North Carolina, and Kayla from Maine. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here for us. Bear with me. I'm not great at this part. Okay. And then, okay. So I'm going to go ahead. Group, are we ready? I can see.
We are ready.
Okay. All right. Our group was around empowering staff, good customer service, and streamlining VR processes. So we each had a section. So I'm going to advance and we'll start. I'm not up first.
It's me. All right. Hi, everyone. This is Nicole Barr with Delaware VR. I am a senior vocational rehabilitation counselor. I work in transition. And next month I will be here for 9 years. So that's my intro. And my person here today is my district administrator, Kenrick Williams, my direct supervisor. So Kenrick, thank you for being here. All right. So we're focusing on good customer service, and I use some of the strategies that we learned in class for ways that leadership can empower their staff to give good customer service. So firstly, I went with the personal mission statement and the vision statement. As I think was Serena her name? Serena Sewell. She presented on the mission and vision statements, and she said a mission statement is what you want and how you will achieve it. What do I do? How do I do it? And how is it beneficial? So I created a mission statement here as a leader, trying to empower my staff with good customer service. And I said, my mission is to give my staff the tools, knowledge, and confidence to give excellent customer service in order to create positive experiences for all individuals that we serve in our agency. And then with the vision statement, which also I felt like tied in with my personal values, Ms. Sewell, the presenter, had also mentioned a mental map for direction and meaning. And some of the values that I found important with customer service include respect, positivity, honesty, and sincerity. And finally, culture and coaching. I feel that if a leader wants their staff to be positive, helpful, and consistent in providing excellent customer service, they need to create a culture of workplace positivity and respect. Staff that does not feel appreciated, respected, and heard by leadership will struggle to remain positive, and it will reflect in their customer service. Next screen, please. So I wanted to kind of break down what good customer service would look like. So I picked 5 talking points. I feel that communication, being positive, being informative, making a good impression, and following up are keys to excellent customer service. So to start with communication, I think it's crucial for your agency and your customers. And when contacted with a problem, positivity and engagement can offer excellent customer service. Staff not only solve problems, but they need to articulate information to the client, explain the cause of the problem, and process involved in solving it. So make sure that the client is well informed and that they know what next steps are. Next, you want to be positive, be positively helpful. Often when a customer reaches out with a problem, they're angry or irritated, and sometimes they aren't even sure what they want or need. So staying positive is one of the most important parts of customer service. Cater to your customers' needs with a positive attitude. And by that, I mean, listen to them, understand what they're saying, acknowledge that they are upset, and keep yourself in check and stay positive when talking with them. Thirdly, be informative. Recognize customer concerns, answer questions clearly, and ask the client if they understand or have any questions. And I actually have an example from this morning for this. I was on the phone with a mom. I've had her son on my caseload for a couple years now. It took him a little extra time to graduate high school, and he did graduate with a certificate of alternative diploma. One of the instructors at the school who was in charge of trying to get him into an 18 to 24 program is no longer there. This mom is kind of at a loss. And a little background on me: when I have a client who I am pretty sure is going to need supported employment services,
I will keep them while they're in high school and try to get things set up so I can do a soft handoff to the supported employment counselor. So this is why this student has stayed on my caseload, but she wasn't sure who she needed to reach out to now. She thought her son was enrolled in this program, but come to find out he's not. And support employment's not my area of expertise. So I told mom that I would gather some information, asked her to give me a couple of days to find out who she should reach out to and what help she might need. And I will reach back out to her and assist her. So giving her, acknowledging that she had concerns and questions and helping her through that process was my attempt to give her good customer service. Next, we have make a good impression. First impressions are everything, they say. So be friendly, be respectful, listen and be responsive, be sincere, and just always be mindful of good customer service. And finally, the follow-up. It shows that you are serious about making sure the customer is happy. Following up is a great way to turn a previously unhappy client into a happy client. This not only makes for a better relationship between you and the client, but it also reflects positively on your agency. That is the end of my portion.
Okay, I'll take the baton. I am Damian Johnson, and I am representing the DC Rehabilitation Services Administration in the District of Columbia. And I am a supervisor of the transition aids unit within our department. We service the youth between the ages of 14 and 24. Now, my topic was compliance and how to get staff thinking about compliance. How to get staff thinking about compliance is a very, very important topic of the work we do in the field of vocational rehabilitation, as it is essential that staff understand what it means to be compliant and ensure that staff place compliance as one of their uppermost priorities as a professional in the organization and industry. Next slide, please. Simply put, compliance is keeping and following the rules that govern the work. In doing so, the organization is compliant with the entity that finances the work. In this case, the federal government via the Department of Education, excuse me, got a tongue twister, the Department of Education. And not only do they fund the work, but they fund the salaries of the professionals charged with doing the work. The federal RSA allocates millions of dollars to state agencies to spend in accordance with the spirit and intent of the law, which is to assist persons with disabilities with obtaining long-term gainful employment that is aligned with their strengths, interests, and abilities. Compliance protects the agency in terms of being compliant and being in good standing with the federal and local governments. Compliance protects taxpayer dollars to ensure that those dollars are spent appropriately, and it mitigates wasting. It protects the time, the efforts, and the resources involved in successfully rehabilitating clients. Ultimately, it protects the access afforded to clients to high quality rehabilitation services. Next slide, please. So perspective is everything. Studies show that the knowledge of why is a strong influencer of action or inaction. If I know why it is important to maintain contact with my clients every 90 days versus just the need to satisfy the federal requirement, it may drive me to ensure that I meet that measure, if not exceed it, as the 90-day contact minimum requirement represents its namesake. It's a minimum requirement. We may have clients who struggle with follow through and follow up in general, and not hearing from the client may not be an accurate reflection of the client's interest in VR services and employment. Sometimes the client's struggle with follow through and follow up is just as strong as their desire to work, that those struggles are a direct product of their functional limitations manifested by their disability. Understanding that why it is important to determine a client's eligibility and IPE timely and the impact that has on client engagement. Many of the clients we serve have experienced an abundance of disappointment over the course of their personal, educational, and vocational pursuits. The RSA counselor's ability to move cases through the VR process fluidly is critical in establishing and in maintaining client engagement, which makes keeping the designated timelines important. One of the examples that are highlighted in this slide is in reference to agency spending and maintaining compliance with those policies and procedures. Identified when that takes place, when the agency is compliant with spending policies and procedures, the services are provided ethically, equitable service provision is maintained, sufficient services are available, and then ultimately that leads to the achievement of the desired outcomes. One of the points I wanted to illuminate here, for example, is with compliance. One of the big charges that we have as an agency is to provide clients with comparable benefit information, and that comes in the form of informed choices. We have a number of providers who can provide locally free services that are commensurate with a lot of the services that the clients request. And oftentimes those services are equivalent to the requested services and may be even more suitable for the client. So it is important that we comply, because we do have to offer clients and consider comparable benefits before providing paid services. And when that is done across the board, the agency can experience significant savings on their resources, which enables more resources to be available across the board. Next slide, please. So in order to drive that perspective home to the staff, in order to explain and teach the why, I mean, we need to effectively and thoroughly train them. We want the compliance focus to be more than a formality, because oftentimes compliance can be a formality. But when you understand the why it's important to be compliant, it helps to make that compliance a little bit more automatic. So teaching and training across the entire agency, from agency-wide trainings, staff trainings within the individual teams, and then also peer-to-peer. In the world of VR, particularly as a VR specialist, there's so many competing deliverables that are happening at the same time, and with varying levels of pressure and stress. So it's very, very important to understand the importance of the training, so that clients are adequately, so that the counselors and the staff at large are adequately prepared and informed. All right, so it's important to positively reinforce and then also to utilize corrective action practices in the area of compliance. For staff who maintain a record of consistent compliance, they should be recognized publicly. Maybe not necessarily, in the larger platforms, the agency-wide or all hands, get-togethers or meetings. But maybe in some of the unit meetings, the staff should be recognized. Those who are exceeding the expectations, they should be recognized. Such recognition serves notice to staff that although compliance is the standard and expectation, those who maintain it are recognized. Now, on the flip side, staff who fail to maintain compliance should be provided the necessary tools to improve in this area. And obviously, training is appropriate, but then there be some instances where perhaps a performance improvement plan will be necessary to correct that particular performance area. And then my last slide is impact on stress. And I selected this quote, when the house is already clean, there's no need to panic when unexpected guests show up at your house. Who can some of those unexpected guests be? Okay, they could come in the form of internal audits, such as case reviews. They could come in the form of external audits, where the Federal Department of Education will visit the agency and examine the case files and really fine-tooth those files. And so when the cases are already compliant, the counselor has no need to scramble to bring the cases to compliance. They also show up in the form of disgruntled clients who are disgruntled because perhaps there's a delay in services, or maybe the services are not available at a point in time. They can also come in the form of client appeals that result in court summons, and then ultimately the threat of lawsuits. When you follow the law, you position your organization or your agency to be able to defend itself from lawsuits. And so I just wanted to close that, yes, oftentimes compliance can seem like a formality. I mean, we're all in the helping field. And at the end of the day, our goal and the reason why we got into these positions is to help, to make a difference for persons with disabilities. But we can never lose sight. We can never forget that all the work that we do must be in accordance with the law and in accordance with our agency's policies and procedures. And when we do that, sometimes the clients may be upset because services are not happening to their expectations. But as counselors, we have to remember that we have the power, we have the authority, and we really set the pace. And it's important for us to communicate to our clients what the expectations are. And sometimes transparency is the resolution for a lot of the stress sometimes that clients bring towards us, because they are coming with expectations, and sometimes those expectations are unrealistic. So that will conclude my presentation.
So my name is Kayla, and my supervisor Spencer is here. So I just want to say thank you to him for attending. So people over process, what is people over process? It's the development of our client, or the development of the business. Excuse me. And so when I think of people over process, I tend to think of VR, specifically the state of Maine, and the transition team that I work with is we work really hard on putting the clients first that we work with and providing that really good community, the really good, my words are stumbling, I apologize today, like client-centered to our clients. And we want to provide that service to our clients and follow a path that the clients drive. When we create like the IEP, we want to empower our clients to make decisions, and we can work with our clients to follow the path. It's not black and white. And I think that's one thing that VR does well, at least the state of Maine, is we can kind of follow a path with the following the procedures and guidelines, kind of what Damian just said, and staying within that path, but also really empowering our clients to make the decisions that they want to do and help them and guide them. Next slide, please. So one of the leaders in this is Reed Hastings. So he is part owner in Netflix. So he follows a delegative style. He's really hands off when it comes to working with his staff. He wants them to, be very motivated to make decisions for themselves. And that creates a really self-motivating atmosphere that they follow. And it's said that this type of style is not the most productive, but it seems to work for Netflix. And it's really, I did a lot of reading when I did this, and it was really cool of how he spoke about that he has promoted people who have made mistakes, which is, you always don't want to make mistakes, and the people that have made mistakes have been promoted to leaders within the organization. But yeah, so that's my part.
Hello, my name is Carol Landis. I'm an adjustment services instructor in Morganton, North Carolina, for the Division of Employment and Independence for people with disabilities. I spend much of my time working with justice-involved individuals, helping them to learn important job skills and soft skills that will aid them to be successful in the community. I would like to thank the people on the call with me today, Pink Moore, Sasha Prebor, and Ada Gregg, for the opportunity and protected time to complete this certification. My topic was empowering staff to encourage independent decision-making. A leader motivates the people around them and gives credit where credit is due. They have confidence in themselves and their team and act as part of the team, whereas a manager monitors the performance, follows the processes, and strives to be the best themselves. Understanding your own leadership style is key to motivating and inspiring teams to achieve their goals. There will be times when you may have to adapt or change your leadership style for different situations and individuals. Effective delegation gives a team an opportunity to learn new knowledge and skills. This improves overall employee satisfaction. Be intentional when communicating and showing appreciation. I believe it was Gretchen and Group 1 highlighted on that to thank them for the effort, not just necessarily the completion of a specific task. Be sure to make it individualized. Appreciation helps an organization retain talent, increase employee satisfaction, engagement, and encourages high performance. Practice self-awareness when communicating with the team and coworkers. Understand how you will react to conflict. It takes 5 positive interactions to negate 1 negative interaction. Ask for and provide constructive feedback. Always view feedback as a gift, whether it's given or received, and positive and negative feedback should be given equally. Provide a safe place to share thoughts and ideas. This will increase innovation and creativity within your team and let them know that all thoughts are important. Next slide, please. Most people surveyed wanted to be recognized, inspired, and have autonomy to make decisions. These are all ways to retain talent, increase engagement, and encourage high performers. It is important when decision-making is handed down that the individual has clear direction and a transparent relationship so that issues can be communicated. A good leader could start with smaller decisions and work their way up to help boost the confidence in the individual. Build confidence by showing staff that you have faith in them to take on new responsibilities. This helps them build confidence and trust in their own abilities. Encourage them to make the best decision. Always make yourself available for questions and encourage them to make the best decision. Reward them publicly and acknowledge their effort and successes. This practice will encourage others to take on more responsibilities. And that's the end of mine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. Carrie Brooker. I'm with Maine Department of Labor Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I'm a regional manager. And I'm rounding out our group's presentation in terms of empowerment and how we can really tie in training and education and all of those kind of pieces into our staff feeling more empowered and our clients feeling more empowered. So I sort of broke down training, which is a very important but very large sort of topic, into sort of 4 components. So we think about onboarding when we have new staff come on. What does that process look like in your agency? We've done some work within our own programs around how accessible it is and also how integrated it is into the work we do. So this is where you could use the Exploring Colors tool that we did early on, thinking about your own learning style and having, as a supervisor, understanding that for your staff. How do they best take in information? Is it in pieces? Is it in pieces and then in context with shadowing and actually experiencing and doing the work and watching it? Do you want the big picture first? Can you do that? Can there be modules where you can see it all up front and then sort of dive in? So just some thoughts around, what to stream. So empowering and streamlining, which are the 2 parts that we had. The more empowered you can feel, as we all have been talking about in the different pieces, certainly apply to how you learn and how you learn best. Mentoring, a huge part of training, also something we talked about in the program in terms of being really intentional with what are your goals for yourself and who around you aligns with that. We also thought that values really play a critical part in that, in finding mentors and people to support you bureau-wide, department-wide, not even just beyond your program, who you look up to and whose values really align with yours. Then I kind of looked at professional development, your own path, and supporting, if you supervise staff, supporting their path as well. And really, this is where vision and mission plays a part in everything, but certainly in professional development. Where do you see yourself going? How can you make that path move forward? And what does that look like? And then the other piece of training in terms of technical assistance. There's so much content out there and there's great training materials. Obviously, I'm not going to put every single resource, but just looking at what your state has, looking at what regionally you have that's already been developed that you can access. And the Vocational Rehabilitation Technical Assistance Center, the quality management one, is amazing. They have amazing tools in terms of rapid engagement, pre-ETs, supporting staff during stormy times. And I did put the links in my notes so I can get those to people if they would like. And then the NTACT, the Technical Assistance Center for Transition as well in terms of resources. Policies and procedures, super fun, but super important. So how do we make those more accessible? The more comfort you have with them as a staff, regardless of your role, the better, the more quality service you're going to provide, and that's going to lead to better outcomes. So how do we help ourselves get comfortable with learning policies and procedures? It doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? So often we look at things where you do case presentations or you pull out a piece of policy okay, we've read it, but then what does that mean? And also drawing from our own experiences. So while even seasoned staff to come back and say, okay, I'm struggling with this case, and I really want to make sure I'm clear on a policy, what our guidance is, because you don't want to obviously go down a wrong path. That's not good customer service. And certainly it just helps you allow your clients to make better decisions. And we know that conflict often arises when policy and procedure gets interpreted or isn't fully understood. So that's really, really important. And again, what are your agencies and your systems processes for how you learn those? And you can make those learning things fun as well. And then lastly, how do we empower for best customer service and compliance? So these are just my 10, talking points that we did in one of the homeworks around making things inclusive, making things accessible, making things diverse. And just some talking points around where some sparks to think about how you feel empowered. What can you be doing to help yourself feel more of that? And what are ways or what are situations that you can identify with working with your consumers or your staff to do that? So acknowledging differences, right? Really viewing work as a change agent. Work is therapeutic. We know this. Work leads to better outcomes with your physical health, with your mental health, right? We want to support people in that process, being intentional, that we've talked about that's a huge theme throughout this whole course. Acknowledging differences. How are we different? How does that make us stronger? How are your team stronger because of that? Are things accessible? Do people feel that they can access material? Can they access you? Can they access the team? The idea about power differentials. They're out there, they exist. What do those power differentials look like? And how can you be sensitive to those, regardless of where you are on that differential? Sharing stories, so important. Having those connections with your small teams, your large teams, having your connections nationally. Seeking experiences that challenge your own bias. Asking for feedback, as Carol talked about. Feedback is a gift. And being brave and being courageous and being vulnerable are also important. So those are our thoughts.
Well, thank you so much. Any comments or questions for group 3?
A comment, that was a great job. I learned something a lot about what we do. And it does pay off in the long run, whether we see it or not.
Great presentation, lots of information. Really important to consider how to combine both good quality customer service and policy adherence with this concept of retention with our staff and helping them to do their best work for the customer, but also to do it in a way that's efficient, that makes sense. As Damien said, to know the why behind the policies and procedures, and also, as was shared in this group, to be able to be creative, to take risks, and to do their work well without being inundated with so many policies of adherence. So thank you again for sharing group 3. Next up is group 4, which is Beth from Delaware, Kyla from Montana, Justin from Maine, Celia from Maine, and Nara from North Carolina.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We're group 4. Again, I'm Beth Holston from Delaware. I think Stacy brags on. Stacy was a presenter a few times. Stacy's my supervisor. We have Celia Robinson from Maine, Justin O'Toole from Maine, Kyla Miner from Montana, and Nyra Simmons from North Carolina. One of the CSABR priorities is building morale and motivation. It's known that high motivation often results in increased productivity, creativity, engagement, and high morale among a team. Typically works better together. Communication is more effective and contributes to overall organizational success. Next, we have Kyla.
First, we'd like to show a quick video.
I've been researching ways to raise morale, and I found an interesting article in a scientific journal.
Oh, was it from the American Journal of No One Cares?
According to a recent study, the physical act of smiling can improve your mood. I suggest we give it a shot. Now you all try. Big smiles. Bigger, bigger. Great. Now we just have to stay like this for the next 2 hours. Can you feel it? Working?
I don't have any enamel on my teeth, so the cold air is excruciating.
Maybe if you brushed your teeth once in a while, this wouldn't be a problem.
I do brush my teeth. They're decaying from acid reflux. You're embarrassing yourself.
Crikey. You're not Australian, Gina. Get stuffed, you drongo.
Guys, seriously, too much exposure to air and they will turn to dust.
This isn't working out as well as I'd hoped. Time for the next level. Forced laughing.
So we had morale and motivation, and that video kind of goes along with what we are going to be talking about. First off, we would like to give you the definitions for morale and motivation. Morale is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. And then motivation is the confidence, enthusiasm, and discipline of a person or group at a particular time. Some of the differences between morale and motivation are motivation is an individualized concept and can vary from person to person. This is a primary concern for supervisors and managers. Motivation affects the performance and productivity in the workplace, as well as it is utilized to encourage and stimulate the employees that are alongside someone. Morale is a group concept and is important for the employee to feel satisfaction and foster their loyalty within an organization. Good morale depends on the factors of the team, feelings, and the work environment. So some of there are the definitions again. You will see motivation, of course, is an inner drive, enthusiasm, and willingness to exert effort towards achieving goals or completing tasks, while as morale is the overall mood, satisfaction, and attitude of individuals or a group towards their work or organization. The origin is for morale is it's primarily influenced by external factors such as the work environment, leadership, and organizational culture. Conversely, motivation is primarily influenced by the internal factors such as personal values, goals, and aspirations. Some of the impact that morale has is it affects the overall productivity, teamwork, and job satisfaction of individuals or a group, while motivation affects the level of effort, persistence, and goal attainment of individuals or a group. Morale and motivation can both be measured through surveys or interviews and observation, and morale is mainly by analyzing the absenteeism or turnover rates, whereas motivation is measured through the self-assessment, goal achievement, performance evaluations, and then feedback. Some of the factors for morale are the work environment, leadership recognition, Leadership and recognition, communication, job security, work-life balance is a really big motivation for a good morale. And then, of course, job satisfaction. For motivation, personal values, goals, aspirations, some of those rewards, recognition, sense of achievement, and growth opportunities. And then self-efficacy are big factors for how motivated a worker is. And longevity, for morale, it can fluctuate over time due to changes in the work conditions, management, or personal circumstances. And then for motivation, it can vary based on the individual circumstances, but tends to be more stable and enduring.
All right. Thanks, Kyla. So I'm Justin O'Toole. I'm an adult voc rehab counselor in Maine, and I have with me supervisors in my office, Don Langworthy, who's my direct supervisor, as well as Sean Nixon, and then our regional manager, Kim Desso. So I wanted to thank them all for joining today. So we've already kind of covered the differences, right, between morale and motivation, but why are they important? That's what I'm going to talk about here. So why is morale important? Low workplace morale decreases employee motivation, engagement, and interest in their work. Disengaged employees actually cost U.S. businesses billions of dollars each year, so there's a financial factor. Businesses with higher levels of morale report higher production numbers, better attendance and retention, a more positive reputation, and more successful recruiting programs. High morale also increases collaboration, creativity, and innovation. Next slide, please. How about motivation? Why is motivation important? So at work, being motivated drives employees to fully engage in what they're doing to achieve the best possible results. Motivated employees are more likely to come to work happy, to be able to tackle challenges head on, and put forth their best effort, which in turn usually results in higher productivity. Employees who are motivated do what they need to do when they need to do it. They may even go above and beyond the specific instructions that are provided if they're motivated. And through problem solving and working extra hours if necessary to get the job done. So the outcome from employee motivation also depends on, what it is that's motivating them, right? What's the source? So for an example, if somebody's motivated by a pay raise, once they get that raise, that motivation might decrease. And on the other hand, somebody who's motivated by high morale within the workplace, the chances are that that motivation is going to stay consistent as long as the morale is in a good place. Next slide, please. So how can we recognize the signs of low motivation and morale? Pay attention to employee interactions. That's obviously really important. A persistent negative attitude indicates frustration or discouragement. Limited interest or commitment to new projects and disinterest in company goals are all indicators of a problem leadership wants to address, should be aware of, as well as poor work performance, decreasing quality of work, missed deadlines, lower efficiency, and waning enthusiasm. That's it for my portion. I'm going to turn it over to Celia Robinson. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Celia Robinson. I'm a transition counselor from Maine, and my supervisor, Spencer Trenoweth, is here. Today, I'm going to go over what the most characteristics and abilities a person must possess to become a successful leader. So this is all based off conversations we had before this presentation on what we felt were important characters and abilities to have in a leader. So some of the characteristics we talked about was like an open door policy. So that creates an environment where staff know the leader is available to support them. Being transparent, so staff feel like they can ask questions and receive honest answers from you. Being adaptable, so open to learning new things and can shift priorities to meet the needs of staff and agency partners. Being flexible, recognizing the difference in work styles and personalities amongst staff and provides support based on that information. So not everybody's the same, and your staff's all going to need different support based on them. Effective communication, presenting information in a clear and logical way so that staff understand expectations. And we've heard this, I think, in every presentation, but the work-life balance that exhibits and prioritizes healthy boundaries between work time and leisure time. Some of the abilities, being organized, so the ability to interpret and piece together information in a way that is easily understood by both the leader and staff. So having good time management, ability to plan the workday efficiently. Delegation, the ability to recognize the different strengths among your staff and then disperse those tasks accordingly. Interpersonal skills, the ability to build relationships, engage in active listening, provide constructive feedback, build confidence. Creativity, the ability to identify what motivates each team member and then coach them to perform to their highest level. And crisis management, the ability to quickly and effectively navigate challenging situations with risk management tools. And a quote we found, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. And that ends my portion.
Hi, my name is Naira Simmons. I'm with the Department of Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities in North Carolina. I want to thank my unit manager, Beth Mills, who is on the call today, and we'll go ahead and get started. So pretty much at the beginning of our presentation, we talked about the difference between motivation and morale. So now we're going to be discussing some things and ways to implement these within our respective offices. We broke down each morale and motivation in ways we can see changes immediately, a year down the road, and 1 to 3 years down the road. So some of the things that we can do to increase morale immediately is we can make sure we continue to make health and wellness a priority. Sometimes our agency sends out fitness challenges where you can, work with groups to do like walking groups, running groups, things like that. You can also increase the social interaction amongst team members. I know both Celia and Beth Holston have their respective groups in their office where they have like ice cream socials and things like that. Something else you can do is ask for feedback amongst your employees and implement those suggestions. Another thing, making sure you encourage your employees to take breaks. Also getting to know your team members and recognizing those individuals based on their language of appreciation. Another good thing you can do is offer opportunities for professional development. I know in my office, my unit manager, Beth, she pretty much if there's a conference you have an interest in, she's going to push to make sure that you're able to go and get that training. Also, you can do what's called an encouragement corner and then celebrating birthdays and work anniversaries. Something that you can do a year down the road is you can create a separate space for employees to kind of decompress within the office. And then you're continuously building rapport and establishing that trust and autonomy within your employees. And something that can't be done necessarily immediately, but it takes a little bit more work is, we mentioned this earlier, trying to get that financial compensation. We do a lot of great work, and sometimes we would like to, see that work valued a little bit better. And then also, again, prioritizing that work-life balance. And I've seen a lot of articles about the benefits of 4-day work week and how that's been really helpful to the mental health of the individuals. Slide, please. Thank you. And so this one is going to be focused on what we can do to increase motivation. Again, it's broken down the same way as what we can do immediately, a year down the road, and 1 to 3 years down the road. So something that we can do currently is offer incentives, solicit positive and constructive feedback, have flexible scheduling. Earlier, I know some people were talking about our teleworking schedules, which is really helpful. We can make sure we continue to create a welcoming and fun work environment. Also, something that we can do a year down the road, have different opportunities to lead on different projects throughout the year. This is going to be a clear path to advancement, whether it's trainings like this, and again, conferences. Any opportunity to do a personal growth to reach your either personal goal or professional goal is definitely going to be beneficial. And lastly, something that we can do 1 to 3 years down the road, Again, focus on being financially compensated, improving those work processes, and consistency with training amongst all offices.
And just to wrap things up, just a few more slides. Ben Franklin said it best, well done is better than well said. This urges one to focus on their actions and to follow through with their intentions. And in order to succeed, your desire for success should be greater than your fear to failure. So this slide has just a couple of tips for morale and motivation. Some of these things were shown in other slides. I just pointed out on the 20 ways or 20 proven strategies to boost employee morale. The top 3 ways to do that is be transparent at the leadership level, establish a meeting-free day each week. I think that is something that I am definitely going to put into place. Number 3, the first word that it came is not my particular fan this week, crowdsource team building ideas. If anybody knows, I traveled on Friday and crowdsource is not my fan. And then 17 tips on how to motivate employees. This was in addition to what Naira had stated already. So give employees the opportunity to lead. That is something that I've implemented currently in my staff meetings, having them have the opportunity to lead a portion of the staff meeting, giving them an opportunity to pick a topic and, lead that portion of the staff meeting. And then support mental health. Definitely, I know the employee assistance program is definitely always an option, but always, support everyone's mental health, really being a focus lately. And then the 14 simple and effective ways to motivate employees, taking a holistic and individualized perspective. We do that for our clients every day. We should do that for our staff as well. We have the vision and mission statement for our agency. We should really define that vision and work on that every day. Set the tone for the company and agency culture, and live through that. And then encourage the learning mentality, professional development, encourage learning constantly. And then lastly is the YouTube video. It's a short little from the HR perspective. It gives 4 ways to promote or to motivate employees. It's cute. If you want to hit play, Kyla, that would be great.
Four ways to motivate employees. Hi, my name is Bruce. As an HR professional, I understand how difficult it can be to motivate employees. Luckily, thanks to my many years of experience, I have 4 foolproof ways that are guaranteed to help you motivate your employees and make your business more successful. When your employees are engaged and motivated, your company will be much more successful and your employees will be much happier. 1. Promote good stressors. By limiting hindrance stressors like job insecurity, job confusion, and unknown responsibilities, your workplace can develop a more autonomous environment where employees feel comfortable sharing ideas and collaborating. To create an organizational innovation climate, it's important to promote good stressors like achievable, challenging workloads, varied responsibilities, clear job descriptions, and fluid conversations. 2. Bridge the introvert-extrovert gap. While you can't offer every introvert in your company their own office, you can offer them more flexible workplaces. With cloud-based tools and the promoted use of working together via laptops, mobile devices, and tablets, your employees will be able to work in environments where they're most comfortable. Try allowing introverts to work from home and extroverts to work in groups, in the conference room, or a coffee shop. 3. Change how employees feel about feedback. While annual performance reviews are often a dreaded task for both employees and managers, it's important to schedule periods of time to talk through successes and failures. Create open lines of communication that allow for real-time, consistent feedback. This will change the way employees and managers collaborate and think about work. 4. Sometimes let employees' minds wander. An organized schedule and a set list of tasks can undoubtedly lead to a productive work environment. But there are benefits to taking a completely opposite approach. Try dedicating one day each month or quarter to shut down the office and build something together. This can boost wakeful processing and team morale. Now that you have a better understanding of what you can do to motivate your employees, you're ready to create a much more engaged workplace. If you want to learn more about ways to motivate employees, click the link below for more information.
So those are our references that we use to help find those strategies for increasing motivation and morale. And that wraps up our presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Great information, Group 4. Really appreciate it. Love the references, the tools, the tips, and the resources. Any comments or questions from anyone?
Very informative. I like that. It was you can interact well. The presentation itself speak mountains.
Thank you, Gloria. Any other comments or questions?
This is Carrie. I liked your video, your clip in the beginning with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because I think it's, you know, it's almost worse for morale when you try to do it and, you know, phone it in, so to speak. So I think that was a really good way to start your presentation. You know, if it's not thoughtful, then it actually, you know, be worse. So thank you.
Agreed, Carrie. Thank you. All right, good job, Group 4. We'll take a break until 1:30 Central Time, and we'll be back with Group 5. Thank you. All right, we are back from our break, and next up is our Group 5 with their projects presentation. And looks like Group 5 is doing recruitment, and this is Annette from Maine, Gloria from North Carolina, as well as LaWanda, and Andrew from Montana. And I will turn it over to you so you can share your screen.
Okay, and Annette, are you able to share the screen through Zoom?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Nope. Presentation mode. Where is that? Okay.
Do you have it?
Am I in presentation mode?
Not quite. Let me see if I can grab it. I think I may see it.
Am I in? Okay. All right. I have two screens, so I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. So we will be talking about recruitment. We are last but not least. And so we're going to be, again, talking about here at Vocational Rehabilitation, how we can do a great job with recruiting. Next slide.
Yep.
All right, this is our group 5, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Andrew Lowney. I'm the pre-employment specialist for the Missoula region in Montana. And I've been with Voc Rehab since 2015. I started as a general Voc Rehab counselor and then transitioned into the pre-employment role.
I'm Gloria Meadows. I am a rehabilitation casework technician. I have been employed with vocational rehabilitation. We have rebranded to North Carolina Division of Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities. And I've been here for 5 years.
And I'm Annette Stevens. I am the grant managers for the Pathways to Partnership Disability Innovation Fund grant for the DVR here in Maine. And prior to that, I spent 12 years in our Maine division for the blind and visually impaired.
And hello, my name is Lawanda Lee Anderson of North Carolina. And as Gloria indicated, we have rebranded to EIPD, Employment and Independence for People with Disabilities. And I have been here with the agency for 15 years and currently in a CIC role, which stands for Counsel in Charge. And I do want to thank my manager, Mr. Gordon Agingu, for coming aboard. Thank you. Next slide. So our goal today is going to be to talk about how recruitment ideas can assist with gaining and keeping competitive and qualified employees. Our agenda, we're going to talk about some challenges that are here within vocational rehab, ideas for implementing recruitment, how are some ways that we can recruit, the benefits, and we're going to give our concluding thoughts. And so Andrew's going to take it away with talking about the challenges.
Yeah, so some of the challenges that our group had talked about, which has been making it difficult, not just in Montana, but everywhere in terms of recruitment, is with cost of living, especially the wages have not been competitive traditionally for government work, especially state VR. Year after year, private sector pay has increased much higher and the salaries have been much higher, which has made it difficult to keep or recruit really good counselors. I know even in Montana, for example, we had for multiple years, people would go through, use the RSA scholarship, get their master's, get their CRC, and then right when their payback was done, they would leave to the private sector and make a lot more money. Or they would leave before then and just pay off whatever was owed. Another challenge is cost of living increases. Inflation is hitting everybody. In Montana in particular, we've seen a huge increase in housing prices, especially in certain areas of the state that are more desirable to live in, upwards to median house prices being between $600,000 to $900,000. And you could imagine with a salary of $45,000, it's pretty difficult to afford a home here. And then the jobs reunion part, it's going to sound weird on here. I think that there's positives to it, but I think we have heard in some feedback we've gotten for challenges for recruiting is bad experiences that people have had with unions. I think unions can be great, and I think that they can help bring in benefits and a lot of the benefits that have been discussed in other presentations. But what we have seen particularly here is what happens at times when you have it, and it's such a large union, is it can cause a lack of incentives for performance. And so when people know that their job is protected and there's no bonuses, there's no really any huge benefit for performance, people often can get complacent. Or people that have worked in other union jobs have had that happen. And so sometimes we have heard in feedback we've gotten when looking to hire people and recruit is that they have had some really bad experiences and that they felt like they were working much harder than their colleagues, but no matter what, they were all paid the same. And there's a lack of accountability that goes along with that as well. So that's been a challenge that we've seen within VR. We'll go to the next slide. And then I forgot to add too, along with the cost of living in other areas like that, there's often not, in most states, a locality pay difference. And so somebody in my region, for example, a counselor might have 150 cases, and the cost of living here is much higher than a smaller office that might only have 60 cases, and their cost of living is much higher. So again, that's for the busier areas, it's really hard to recruit people in knowing that they're going to have a lot higher caseload and make the same as somewhere else. Other challenges that we've seen is in Montana in particular, but most states seem to have an outdated process for the applications. Working as a pre-ed specialist, I work with high school students and with young adults, and I'm constantly looking at hiring processes and finding jobs that are posted and open. And it's amazing to see how creative businesses are getting. There's, jobs being posted on Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and kids now can just go on and scan a QR code and go right to a job application, where most state agencies are still just posting the openings on their state website under their employment tab. And it doesn't seem like that's drawing in a lot of traffic. So that's a challenge that we've noticed for recruitment, is people just don't even know about our jobs. I don't think it's reaching enough people, especially younger candidates that might be coming out of college. Another recruitment issue, it doesn't seem to matter how many times we let people know, particularly here, that yes, you need a master's and a CRC to be a counselor, but you can start without it. You can start with a bachelor's degree and do the RSA scholarship and go through, get the master's, and then, get pay bumps as you go. And so it's still, when people read our job descriptions and they see that you have to have the master's and the CRC, it deters a lot of people from even applying because they don't think they're even qualified. And then another issue we've been running into is staffing issues for HR as well. So we have designated HR staff for Voc Rehab and other agencies within the state. And what happens is, if they're short-staffed, we might have applicants that are applying, and they might be applying at multiple state agencies, but we might be too slow in getting them scheduled for an interview. And by the time they interview, they've already accepted a job elsewhere. And so that's been a huge issue with recruitment, is people aren't wanting to wait around weeks or even months to get scheduled and to have an opportunity to interview. And so that, and then of course, what comes with the new staffing is they're learning the job. And so there's some different things there too, is that you have new HR staff as well that may not have a great system in place. And then the accessibility. So application forms aren't always accessible. They're sometimes difficult to find. And so I think being able to find better ways, whether it's through the state VR websites, whether it's through other means, just making sure that our application materials are accessible. Sometimes the application process itself can be really difficult and might eliminate somebody who might be really qualified, but they just missed one little item on the application. And so that's what we've seen, is not just for clients, but making sure things are accessible for employees or for prospective employees.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And so it is up to me now for the ideas for implementation. And I just to go back, I'm going to preface this by, we had a conversation when we were developing our PowerPoint, and really these ideas came from all of us versus kind of things that we've known. So we all kind of used it. There's 3 different states. So we just kind of talked about our some ideas. Mentorship program. We can't express the importance enough of providing the connections for new employees with subject matter experts. Not only does it help new employees learn, it also provides them with a sense of belonging to the organization, and just letting them feel valued right from onboarding. Bonus incentives for staying. You see it in certain hard to place jobs. You see it all the time in the healthcare industry, in sign-on bonuses, but in staying. So for a year, 5 years, 10 years, some sort of incentive. I know here in Maine, we have what we call longevity pay. It's 20 cents an hour. I mean, it's there, it's an incentive, but it's really minimal. And then also kind of leading back to what Andrew had talked about with higher pay based on locations, about actually paying people who live in high urban areas where apartments or houses are more. Like, say, here in Maine, we have a very, very rural part of the state, everything is in the southern part, just 3 hours north of Boston. So you can imagine what rents are just 3 hours north of Boston. You're talking $2,000 a month. And they get paid the same as those that live in the farthest reaches of Maine, where you can still get an apartment for under $1,000 a month. So, just kind of level it out and making that people that live in those higher places get a stipend or more pay based on geographical area and caseloads as well, because the caseloads can be higher there, as Andrew had explained earlier. And then one of the other things that we wanted to talk about was career exploration and job shadowing for youth. We do a really good job of getting out to transition age kiddos and talking about career exploration and jobs and what's out there. I don't think we sell VR well enough and what we do, whether it's your general program, your division for the blind, your deaf and hard of hearing programs. I don't think that we really sell ourselves very well, and we felt we could do a better job of that. And then some ways to recruit for vocational rehabilitation services. Click them all on so I don't have to worry about it while I'm talking. And I went too far. And we're going back. So, ways to recruit. Reaching out to universities and colleges, starting right with freshmen, letting them know that there are free master's programs out there. So before, obviously when kids go to college, sometimes they have a career path in mind, but those aren't as set in stone as they are for juniors and seniors. But really starting earlier at those colleges and universities, selling VR, what is it we do? Social work programs, teaching programs that are closely aligned with what we do, and letting them know that there's an ability to get a master's program and kind of hook them in. Encouraging internship opportunities with paid stipends. We know that some states have limitations around that. A lot of them do, but trying to be creative. Maybe we can't pay them, but we can maybe, does one of our employees have an apartment over their garage that they could help the intern stay in to be close to the office? Just coming up with some creative ideas for paid internships or some stipends to help bring those young folks into VR. One of the ones that was brought up, which I thought was really cool, was providing incentive for support staff to get degrees for advancement. Looking within, who are the people within DVR or vocational rehabilitation? And support staff maybe have, maybe they want to advance, and making it available for them to do so, kind of growing our own, so to speak. Finder's fees, maybe, current employees, we get bonuses if you can bring in, employees and they stay. There's a little bit of a financial incentive. That might be something that is of value. Sign-on bonuses for new employees, for you get a certain amount when you sign on, and then you get a certain amount within 6 months, and then a certain amount within a year to really, kind of entice folks into coming. I mean, the group earlier talked a lot about retention. Some of this stuff is similar, but you got to get them in the door before you can retain. So, mini promotional videos, little videos that you can talk about how it's like to work with VR. Nothing long, just quick. Thinking of, which ties into social media, utilizing those platforms, TikToks, doing those quick minute videos, and not just once, but periodically as you can, without, obviously breaking confidentiality and things like that. But, what is the life of a VR counselor? Maybe showing short clips of what happens, some of the good stuff that we do. And then using things like was mentioned earlier, QR codes, reaching the candidates better. What is it that we can do to entice younger folks into coming into VR? And I'm going to pass it to Gloria.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I would like to first say that I have two co-workers, one being our counselor in charge, our supervisor here. Her name is Lakeitha. And I also have a co-worker who is a rehabilitation counselor one, and that is Lauren. There may be another person on here, but I'm not sure. So, but let us talk about the benefits of recruitment. One of the things that really got me as a new employee 5 years ago was the paid trainings and the accommodations that I receive when I go to a training. It depends on where that location is, whereas the state will pay for your food, your rental, car rental, and your travel reimbursement if it depends on where you're going locally. It is job stability. I have found that out once you after being employed with vocational rehabilitation or EIPD in this case, for 1 year, then you're considered, what's that word? You're stable with the agency. You're stable as a state employee. You also we receive the benefits are the medical insurances, which it really depends on the type of family dynamics that you have, where you can carry dependents as such, and you also get dental, medical. And then there's the paid holidays. Those are the state or federal holidays, but we also have personal observance, which is given once a year for 8 hours. You can take it as your leisure, but it has to be done by December 31st. And we also incorporated an adverse weather leave, which is 8 hours too, because on the eastern part of North Carolina, we're subjected to having hurricanes, and they can impact the coast as far inland as our state capital. So they incorporated that as well. Succession planning, we came up with this thought: you can grow on your own. In other words, you can find your future here at vocational rehabilitation or EIBD. If you're willing to have professional or personal growth, all you would need to do is consort with your management and about how to utilize your talents, how you can, and learn from other areas of interest that may be an interest to you to further your career at vocational rehabilitation. And by communicating your strengths and weaknesses, you can also endeavor another career path. You don't have to stay where you are. You can learn something different. And also with the benefits, I missed that part, is what we call CNC or State Employees Association of North Carolina. This may be different in other states, but what it does is we have our General Assembly. They listen to the employees and their grievances, and these lobbyists present this on the floor, and a lot of things start to change for VR or EIPD. And one of them is being that retention bonus, and a whole lot of other things too, your medical, your dental program stuff. Public student loan forgiveness. And this is, as I heard earlier, if students have been in a repayment plan with the Department of Education for 20-25 years, you may be eligible, but there are some other criteria that you have to do as well. And also, the vocational rehabilitation, EIPD, also has a great work culture and strong leadership. Leadership wants you to grow and bring your strengths and have an openness and a willingness to learn new things. And from my previous background, that was a little hard in the beginning, because I came from the other side of the table, so to speak. And when I was trying to learn what I was supposed to do as a casework technician, it took a little bit more putting aside the past and bringing on the future. By having a strong leadership in your by having a strong leadership, they listen to you. That I heard earlier about the open door policy. They're willing to listen to whatever questions you may have and see how they can help. And this in turn reduces vacancies. And by having a person to go to whenever you're unsure about something or need some clarity or just have questions, they are there to support you. And they do provide good training. They do. And there is a potential for good culture, friends that you can hang out with afterwards, and you can establish and glean from them what some questions that you may not even have thought of, while you're with management. But you can also establish friendships or have a sense of belonging because they want you to grow and we want you to grow, and being a part of a solution that helps others. That's the population that we serve. And there, like I mentioned earlier, there is good training and mentorship opportunities, which I so happen to be part of. So that is my spiel. I'm sorry, I went ahead of the slide. So sorry.
All right, and so our final thoughts basically are, as a whole, in vocational rehabilitation services, we definitely have our work cut out for us. But despite all the challenges that we shared, we have some great incentives. We have the job stability, we have state benefits. As we mentioned earlier, our lobbyists are fighting for our interests, pay raises, and bonuses. We are helping people move forward, as well as we're hiring individuals who have disabilities, similar to the ones we are serving. And for our conclusion, our recruitment ideas can definitely assist with gaining and keeping qualified and competitive employees here at Vocational Rehabilitation Services. And our next slide. And one more time, the end. Thank you all.
Thank you, Group 5, for your presentation on recruitment. Great information. Any comments or questions from anyone? We appreciate the thought and the work that you have put in your presentation, as we do with all the other groups as well. Thank you all for the project's presentations, and thank you to our special guests who have been here to support you. We appreciate you for showing up and engaging with us in this presentation. In addition to your supervisors and colleagues that you've invited, we've also had some participants from our Group 2 cohort, or Cohort 2 of the National Pathways, who've also been present today, kind of getting a look at your presentations to get an idea of what's going to be expected of them. So we appreciate you, Cohort 1, for your presentations, for your work, and for your effort in today's project presentations. Any other comments or questions from anyone in today who's present, either in the cohort or guests? I agree, Heather. Everyone did a great job. Thank you. All right, so let me get my screen. Get y'all back for our next section. Just sharing a few thoughts with everyone about your graduation and your next steps. Congratulations, you all did it. You have completed the National Pathways training. This quote from Douglas MacArthur says, "A true leader has confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others." I chose this quote because it resonates with me as a leader. Sometimes you do have to stand alone, make tough decisions, but also do it within the realm of being inclusive and compassionate, empathetic to the needs of others. One of my final thoughts to share with you all today is from the 5 practices of exemplary leadership from Kouzes and Posner. The Leadership Challenge is the title of the book. And in their book, I think they have shared 5 practices that we have modeled in this National Pathways training. They say for a good leader to be effective, they must model the way. They should clarify their values and they should set the example. You all have done that in that you've identified your values, your personal mission and vision statement, right? You've also declared or determined your individual leadership style with the true colors and have related how that can impact motivation and engagement in the workplace. They also say for a leader to be exemplary is that they must inspire a shared vision. So while you created your own personal vision statement, it's also important to get others engaged in your vision. So it's not enough to have a personal vision. It's not enough to have an organizational vision. It's just as important to encourage and to motivate others to be a part of that vision, to help them to see the big picture, to help them know their place in the vision. So how do you envision the future, not only for yourselves, but also for your agencies? How do you encourage people in your organizations to get on board with these great ideas, these tremendous ideas that you've presented today in these projects? How can you enlist others and engage them in the work? They also say you must be willing to challenge the process. And challenge the process is not something we hear often in VR. Often it's about either customer service or making sure that we are crossing all our T's and dotting all our I's. But in challenge the process, they're telling us that we should experiment and we should take risks. We should be willing to operate within the gray areas of policy. We should be willing to try some things, make mistakes. Someone shared in their presentation, I think it's Google or some other organization, Amazon, maybe it's Netflix. Netflix, how they will promote people who make mistakes. And there's value in learning from our mistakes and growing from our mistakes. So how are we encouraging and challenging each other? And how do we create a workplace that really encourages us to make mistakes, where we celebrate, hey, you did it wrong, but you learned something great. And now we can do something better the next time. And how do we look for opportunities? You shared some great resources, videos, links with the technical assistance centers, other resources and books that you shared today. Those are opportunities for us to learn. You gave great example from Ohio and what they've learned along the way with their big name change and outreach project. So those are opportunities to help us to challenge our process, to look at how we can do better with our work, not only for our customers, but for ourselves and for our colleagues, to make the job better for us. And then we are challenged by Kouzes and Posner in the Leadership Challenge to enable others to act. How do we foster collaboration, because we can't do it alone? We may like to work alone, but we still have to be willing to collaborate, right? We have to be able to come together with people who think differently from us, who work differently from us, but yet we create that environment, as you talked about, in culture of inclusion and belonging, where everyone thrives, where everyone can be their best selves. Whether, as was shared in that HR video, you are externally motivated or you're internally motivated. And then we strengthen one another. One of my favorite quotes is that we are better together. We strengthen each other. We build upon each other. We need each other in the workplace. And I don't know if you remember from our director, Dole, who shared, it's not my job to make myself look good. It's my job to make you look good, and it's your job to make me look good. So we help each other. We build each other up, right? We are only as strong as our weakest link. And then we encourage the heart, as you shared today. We take whatever steps necessary to learn what what appeals to each other individually in terms of motivation. And we use that. We recognize contributions on an individual as well as a group effort, and that we make it matter to that person. So we speak their love language. We celebrate people the way they want to be celebrated, and we celebrate their values and their victories. All right, so again, congratulations. You will receive a certification from UA Currents by way of Accredible, which is the certification program that we're using. And as long as you have submitted all your coursework, your pathways, email that you sent out to your leaders, and your participation, of course, in the group project, as well as your attendance in the class, you will be receiving that over the next couple of weeks. Not only the digital badge that we ask you to display in your email or on your social media like LinkedIn, but also a digital certificate as well. You have our contact information. You have your cohorts, your accountability partners' contact information. Please stay connected. Please let us know what's going on in your lives, and we look forward to seeing the next great things that you're going to accomplish in vocational rehab. That's it for me. Any other comments or questions from the group?
I have not a question, but a comment. When
Sure.
we first started, well, when I first started Pathways this year, and looking back at that in opposed to now, I have seen some growth and implemented what I've learned. And it's going to take a village, but I'll get there. I have a good support system in place as well. So I'll make it. I'll do well. So thank you.
We have seen that same growth, Gloria, and you as well with your colleagues here in Cohort 1. Your homework assignments and your reflection pieces have been a treasure to me and an opportunity to really learn and to grow. So I've seen so much from each of you in the cohorts or the groups that I've been reviewing and providing feedback to. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being a part of this National Pathways. And again, thank you to your organizations for giving us the opportunity to work with you in this training program. We look forward to staying connected. So we'll say have a great rest of your day, a great week, great summer, and we'll stay connected. Thank you.